Well, it's me again. Um, just watched a video by Truckin' Piper Bob, and he's doing a gaw. And I don't know how I missed it, but I made a comment. What a beautiful and wonderful gaw it was. And he asked me if I was jumping in, and I was like, oh, just can't resist. Um, so, here we are once again at the tail end of another bowl of Rattray's Hell of the Wind. And I think the question was, I'm going to be really embarrassed if this isn't what it is. It was, what's your favorite book or books? Well, that's a really hard decision for me to make. I've always been a big reader. Love to read, always have. When I was young in second grade, I really struggled with the reading. That was the one thing on the little progress report that my parents would get. They said I was struggling, and they laugh about it now because as punishment, as I was older, they would tell me, put down the book, come out here and watch TV with your family. Because I was always reading after that. There's just something that happened, it just clicked with me, and I never stopped, and I haven't yet. So, as a big reader, I've read quite a bit. Very, a lot of variation on the different genres that I've read. Science fiction, fantasy, of course, when I was younger. Is a big history fan. I really love historical fiction, biographies. But I have three different genres. Now, two of them are kind of one's very specific. The two are not. As I've gotten older, I've really grown to love poetry, and one of my favorite poets is Malcolm Guite. He also has a presence on YouTube, and he's also a pipe smoker, and he writes beautiful poetry. He takes a lot of inspiration from Yeats and all these wonderful British and religious poets throughout the ages, and his poetry is beautiful. So anything by Malcolm Guite. I've read almost all that he's published that I can get here in the States. I think there's a couple things that I can't get because they're in a periodical for the Church of England. There's a newspaper for that, but I also heard that recently that he was going to be kind of putting all of those things that he's written for smaller publications and putting them in one source, and that's going to be coming out soon, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. Also, anything by Bernard Cornwell, in the vein of historical fiction, can't go wrong. I couldn't pick one. I really couldn't pick one. He's got many series, very prolific writer, a lot of good stuff. Historically accurate in the dates and times and major events, but it's always really fun to see those people from the past fleshed out, and the events. The more accurate, the better, but also you have to take a little bit of license with those kind of writings, of course. But it really makes history come alive. Now, I was trying to think of one book that really I always think about, and I actually thought about this book the other day because I saw somebody on the plane reading it, and I wanted to ask her about it, what she thought about it, if she had read it before. But I could list a lot of books and authors that I really enjoyed growing up. But there was one that I read. I think I was in junior high when I read it, and I might have been a little young to read it, but there was something about it that was uplifting and heartbreaking and enchanting all at the same time. And it was The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. She wrote quite a bit in, I want to say, the 40s, maybe 30s. But the Good Earth series, and specifically the first one, which is titled The Good Earth, it's about a Chinese farmer, very humble beginnings. He's about to go get himself a wife, which I always thought was fascinating because he was getting to the age where he needed to get married. He needed somebody to help him take care of his aging father. So he went to the local great house and said, "Hey, do you have a woman for me?" And I guess, as is the tradition in China at that time, and I really don't know when this takes place. There's certain things that happen during the book that makes me want to think it's somewhere during like the Indochina War time period, because there's some war going on at some points in the book. There's kind of like a lack of law in the land due to revolution, but it definitely probably takes place in the late 1900s, I would imagine. Maybe early late 19th century, early 20th century would be my guess, but I don't know for sure. But it just follows him and his family, and their trials and tribulations. Expanding their land, their property, and becoming much more affluent, and then the ups and downs that come with that, and then the repercussions of changes in society upon this family as the world moves on into a newer age, and the older ways become less important to the later generations. And overall, it's a wonderful book. Makes you feel a little melancholy for a hard yet slightly simpler time, perhaps. And for me, that was something that I never got to experience, and also probably wouldn't, even if I was born a century earlier, to a degree, because this takes place on the other side of the planet from where I currently live. But I think there's some things in this book that are relatable to, especially at the time that book was being written. A lot of these things were happening, and there were still people living a harder life. Really working in sync with the land and the ups and downs with that, and the coming of a new age. The age that we currently live in, post World War II type of feel. So that's all I got. Thank you, Bob, for offering up a very generous gaw. I hope this answered the question, and I'll talk to you guys later.